Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And John Nichols, Washington correspondent for The Nation magazine, on the line with us. And hey, John, how are you?
I am just fine, Tom.
Me too, actually. I think it was a great day yesterday for progressive issues. Virtually every progressive issue that was on the ballot, from fracking bans to paid sick leave to Prop 47 in California, gun control in Washington, medical marijuana, bail reform, personhood, pot legalization, minimum wage, all of them won. We won all of them.
I could top you, brother.
Okay.
First off, let's acknowledge that what you just described was pretty much the Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders mandate from last night.
Absolutely.
That I'm not sure will lead the news.
No, it's going to be it's being completely ignored by everybody except you and me.
But here, let me top you. I think I can.
Okay.
Ripon, Wisconsin is the birthplace of the Republican Party.
Oh, really? I thought it was Jackson, Michigan. Okay.
You're a Michigander. You guys always...
Yeah, of course.
Claims. No, Ripon, Wisconsin, several months before.
All right.
Recognized on a stamp as the birthplace of the Republican Party, last night just voted 80% in favor of amending the Constitution to get big money out of politics.
Whoa.
In fact, there were...
How did I miss that one?
What's that? That's a pretty good one, isn't it?
This is just a town that did this?
This is the city of Ripon, Wisconsin.
R-I-P-I-N?
Yeah, R-I-P-O-N. Birthplace of the Republican Party.
Wow.
And they weren't alone. All across Wisconsin, down in Florida, communities all across this country, you were seeing 70, 80% votes for getting money out of politics. Tragically, in many of the same places, they were voting for these, Koch-funded, billionaire-driven candidates, people given an actual choice, saying, do I want this politics? Do I want a politics that fits with everything you were just describing a few minutes ago? Or do I want a politics where the money's out? They said, we want the money out.
Right.
We want the corporations controlled. So this gets to the heart of the matter, and it's one of the most important things to understand about yesterday. We have entered into an absurd, fully dysfunctional political cycle in this country. We have presidential elections with a just okay level of turnout, nothing decent compared to countries we'd want to compare ourselves with. But then we have off-year elections with an incredibly low level of turnout, manipulated by massive amounts of money that actually drive more people away from the polls and draw them in. So we end up in this horrible situation where we're whipsawed as a country. A mandate from a presidential election versus a mandate from a non-presidential election, all slathered in money, all drenched in corporate influence. And in many ways, Tom, I think the only real signals that we get of where the American people are at are on these referendums.
Yeah, I agree. You've seen, I'm assuming, John, you're familiar with the pieces written from Gaius Publius over at America Blog and over at Forbes magazine and whatnot, that the Koch brothers are sitting on over $100 billion worth of tar sands oil up in Canada. They're the largest American owners of Canadian land, 2 million acres apparently, and they need to get that to their refineries on the Texas coast so that they can refine the poison out of it, dump it into the American air, and then export the gasoline and diesel fuel. And their net worth isn't even $100 billion. They could double their net worth. So they drop $500 million into an election, and they make $100 billion. That's like investing 50 cents and making $100. I don't know of any investment on earth that returns that kind of return.
Well, Tom, you are describing one of the themes of the book Bob McChesney and I wrote together a couple of years ago, Dollarocracy.
Yep.
And we argued in that book, basically research based off the 2012 election, looking at the incredible amounts of money flowing to both parties, to candidates that some listeners to this show probably like, and came away with the conclusion that the single best investment for rich people is politics.
Right.
You can't beat it. Sheldon Adelson, everybody made a big deal about Sheldon Adelson back in 2012, that he dumped the better part of $200 million into campaigns. Quite a few of them lost, admittedly. But do you know that at the end of the year, he gave himself, via some stock manipulation, a $1.2 billion bonus. So wow. $200 million, man, that's nothing. Right. When you can give yourself a bonus like that. But here's the deal. The return on that investment, even if 90% of your donations, your expenditure, goes awry, doesn't elect who you want, even if you get a tiny portion of it, in certain areas, the return is so overwhelming.
Well, and not only that, they're running this money through 501c3s. They're running it through nonprofits, which means that they can write it off as a charitable contribution.
Oh, and I got a better one. Let's try and outdo each other here.
Got about half a minute left, John.
I could do it in a half minute. Everybody's running around saying this is a $4 billion campaign. Mm-hmm. Wrong. That's just the federal spending. You start to look at states, judicial elections, local elections, I'm going to guarantee you we're going to be into the $6-7 billion. And that's money that in most cases nobody even really tracks and nobody even talks about.
Right, and because hundreds of these groups got funded the day after October 15th, the reporting date, we won't know for another year where all that money, came from, or even how much it was. It's really pretty breathtaking. John Nichols, the Washington correspondent with The Nation magazine, thenation.com. You can read his piece on the midterm losses over at The Nation. Thank you, John.
Thanks, brother.
Good talking with you.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.